If you ain't raw dogging, what are you doing, dog?
Who's starting? Is this supposed to be me? Am I hosting?
You Michigan Wolf, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hosting. I told you I would host. Let the music play out a little bit.
Oh, you wanted to go further. That's how it is. It's the 4th&1 podcast. It's your boy, Admiral. You like that? Co-hosting with probably one of now the least boring people. At least last night, he was pretty unboring, except we were very similar last night. Live from Lancaster and Lettuce, Pennsylvania. Instagram at 4th&1 podcast. As Makai always says, add the podcast. It's very important.
People apparently don't. I say, what's the name of your podcast? 4th&1 podcast. And they just type in 4th&1. No, type in the podcast.
If you Google us, we'll come up for 4th&1. There's another 4th&1, but there will be both of us.
Cam Newton's the podcast is also 4th&1.
Oh, that bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's
we
that
may
going
need
on.
a rebrand. We may have to end up rebranding.
Maybe.
1 and 4.
But
1st and 4. There it is.
1st and 4. There it is. 1st and 4. Hey, that's not bad. All right. 1st and 4 it is. Okay. Just kidding. As of right now. So, it's a great day in Ann Arbor. It's a great day wherever we are because we are Michigan fans. Down in Tuscaloosa, though, I'm sure it is like the world is ending. World is on fire. Quick recap. In the first college football playoff at the Rose Bowl game, Michigan trailed for the first time this season in the second half. Down 7 with 4 minutes to go. 75 yards to go. J.J. McCarthy, Roman Wilson, Blake Corum get it done, tie the game. Overtime, Blakey C does Blakey C things. And then the QB draw, which we will get into in just a second, that was killing Michigan all game, gets stopped on 4th and goal. Michigan advances to the Natty night game. This game took forever. I went to bed with 1:30 left because I thought the game was over. And then Washington or Texas gets the ball back, down 6. Dylan Johnson has an injury, so that stops the clock. Again, I didn't watch the end of the game. I'm just going off of what I told. Dylan Johnson had a injury, so that stopped the clock. Then, which allowed Texas to get the ball back, drive down the field on 4th and 11, 1 second left from its own 15-yard line, throws a fade to the back of the end zone that gets swatted away from Adonai Mitchell. And so it will be Michigan and Washington in the national championship. So let's start with the granddaddy of them all. First and foremost, Kirk Herbstreit is finally on the bandwagon that the Natty needs to be played at the Rose Bowl every year. So thank you, Kirk, for jumping on that. I appreciate your support, as I've been saying this for 3 years now.
Okay. Put that one. My memory isn't the greatest. I do not remember you saying that.
I've been saying this since the day one of the podcast.
Robert's fact checked.
I mean, I still don't think it should be, but I don't even know. I know Micaiah has been very high on, and he probably has said it, but like most of Micaiah's opinions, they just kind of go out the door.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
I mean, he's not wrong. They kind of do just go out the door, and I think it is important. I also agree with you. I think the West Coast time slot does kind of suck. However, there isn't really a better place to do it than the Rose Bowl, right? I mean, the only...
You could still put the Natty at 7:30. It's 4:30 out there. No one works in California anyway, so...
I'm not complaining. First of all, it should be on a Saturday and not a Monday.
Well,
you
can turn around and go F yourself with that. That's just, no.
No, I agree. It should be on a Saturday. All college football is on a Saturday.
Is on Saturdays, yeah. I understand the New Year's Day thing, but I get that it's a short turnaround from New Year's Day to the next Saturday. Then give it to 2 Saturdays out. What we do with the Super Bowl. They get 2 weeks. You won't interfere with anything. You'd interfere with NFL playoffs, but, who cares about the wild card round anyway?
But if you put the NFL playoffs on Monday night, because the NFL is a Monday night league.
I didn't like
out.
that we were having to compete with the Cowboys losing to whoever the Cowboys lost to. I'm sure
they
yesterday.
actually ended up winning.
Oh, they did.
Cowboys ended up winning, yes, because the referees don't
Have you not seen
realize
anything about this?
when a player walks. Are you being for real right now? You don't know this, Simeon? This is like dominated the week before yesterday.
Yeah, like this
Didn't
is
the
pretty
Cowboys
big
play
news.
last night? Wasn't this Monday?
No, Michigan
Cowboys
played last night.
No, I know Michigan.
Well, actually, it was like midday, but around that time.
Texas and Washington played last night.
Who was the Monday night game? There was a Monday night football game last night.
No, there wasn't.
Texas and Washington.
Was there not a Monday night football game last night?
No, because of the playoffs.
Oh yeah, they moved it to Thursday or whatever.
It was so Monday
special
night football
presentation
is now on Saturday, right?
Yeah, because that's logical. Right. Okay,
so,
well, if it's going to be the development league, which it's not, they announced the new development league on college football Saturday, which didn't really have any games, so it wasn't college game day really. Then they had college game day on Monday. They need to figure this out. ESPN needs to put their head together and go, okay, not going to happen. We're going to need to figure this out. You guys just confused me. I have no idea what happened with the Dallas game. I know the Eagles just run a high school football thing, and I know them. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. So that's about what I know.
So,
this week.
I won't get into the Dallas-Detroit thing, but when a player walks up to you and says, hey, I'm reporting as eligible, maybe you should pay attention to that player, because that's exactly what happened, but then the ref said he didn't report as eligible.
I saw that on my YouTube feed. Okay, yeah.
All right, so back to it's being great at Michigan Wolverine. CFB3, my dude, we heard very little from you last night. You were very quiet on the chat until the very end of the game. We all kind of were. Me and Admiral were together. Thoughts on the game? Let's start there, and then we'll deep dive in.
I don't know why all of a sudden we struggled on special teams.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that's the biggest takeaway. And it's definitely the most un-Michigan game plan they have done all year. They did a lot of motioning, a lot of just stunts, especially on defense. If you would have told me that we would have sacked Jalen Milroe 5 times, especially 4 in the first half, I would have said you're crazy. Michigan doesn't sack the quarterback that often, especially this year. And to do it, especially against a team like Alabama, who generally does have a pretty decent offensive line, that was very surprising. It was also good to see that we were able to protect JJ enough to where we were able to run the ball somewhat effectively, but not just up the middle constantly. Like we had more jet sweep motion. We had more tight end motion. Like we played an NFL style game against a traditional NFL team, and we beat them at that game. If Michigan plays like that all year, Michigan doesn't even come close to losing a game by at least 50.
Yeah, it was the game plan, especially offensively, was very creative. There were a lot of shifts. Every single play, they're shifting at least twice. It was the running game. It was a little outside. It was a little inside. JJ ran it in critical situations. To be quite honest, not that anyone asked me, but my opinion of the game is Michigan probably should have won by at least 14 points yesterday. You had the muffed punt that led to the first Alabama touchdown. Then Michigan went right down and answered. And then you had a whole bunch of drops and miscues and missed throws. The game basically started with JJ throwing an interception that thankfully Caleb Downs was out of bounds. He was throwing it away, but it needs to go. It needs to go into the stands.
To TCU all over again. He threw 2 interceptions to the same spot against TCU last year.
Yeah,
and but then late in the game he made some plays that we ended up winning from. And then again, the missed field goal because the snap was rolled back. Snapping the ball was difficult for everybody. Alabama, Jalen Milroe had to deal with low snaps, except for Michigan center. Dude,
I'm telling you, it's the ball. Because I guarantee you, because they're special balls, because it's a bowl game, a playoff game, it's not balls that they've used all season. They're more than likely have not been broken in by either team, or if they were, they had maybe 10 minutes to try and break them in. And I bet you those were just like slippery.
That's a really good point, Robert. If they got to break them in at all. But have you seen the difference between an NFL broken in ball and just a ball straight out of the box? It is night and day. Literally, it is much darker. I say literally a lot. You say ladies and gentlemen, Micaiah. I say literally. I guess that's our thing. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that, Robert. Micaiah, I do disagree with you on the miscues, though, because Alabama, Nick Saban is quoted saying, "We shot ourselves in the foot." Yes, you can blame yourself for that, and that can be what you said in order to excuse your loss away. But there were 2 scores on Alabama miscues that I guess would have been made up by Michigan miscues. So I think the score technically still would have been the same. I would have to say.
So the muff punt led to a touchdown. If we didn't have that, let's just say Alabama doesn't get a touchdown there, right?
Yeah.
So the muff punt led to a touchdown. Right. The missed field goal led to a field goal.
Right.
Then we had a muff punt at the very end of the game. First of all, I did not agree with some of the fair catches that Jake Thaw and Samaje Morgan were making. Backed up at the 10-yard line. Especially the last one where Jake Thaw tried to fair catch it at the 10-yard line. What are you doing? If it's down at the 1, it's down at the 1. Who cares? That's what they were trying to avoid, but that's where they got it anyway.
I think that after the first muff, I think everything after that was we're catching the ball. It is what it is. And towards the end, I think it ended up turning into catch the goddamn ball and here comes pressure. And I think it was like one of those like, oh my God, I need to catch us. Oh my God, I need to catch us. And then it was, of course, like,
and it just kind of got, yeah. And even like after the missed field goal, even the field goals before that and the extra point and the 1 extra point that followed after that, it was a little shaky. Like the snaps were high, but then in overtime, that was a picture perfect snap, picture perfect kick, up, good. So Michigan's obviously going to clean that up. The coaches are going to clean that up. Jay Harbaugh is going to earn his $500,000 or however much he's making because he's got to clean up special teams since that's his department. Alabama, their miscues were penalty-wise, though. Simeon, to your point, Nick Saban saying, it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back all night, whether it be via sacks or penalties, holding, low snaps.
They didn't have. I'm gonna look at this real quick. They didn't have that many penalties, if I'm remembering.
Critical.
Their
penalties.
big ones. Yes, their big one was that whatever it was, 4th down. The 4th and 2 on his own 30 in the fourth quarter, whatever that penalty was, that was the big one.
Are you talking about Alabama?
Correct. I'm trying to pull this up. I don't remember what that penalty was, but it was the one. It was a motion, Blake Corum motion out, and then dump off to Blake Corum. Blake Corum gets it. And then there was illegal block in the. Wait, no, that was a Michigan penalty. I'm sorry, that was an illegal block in the back. That's on me. Sorry, guys.
Well, and that just goes to a Michigan miscue. I mean, Michigan would have had it like at the 35-yard line of Alabama. That backs it up to the 50. They go down, they score anyway because J.J. McCarthy and Roman Wilson, they are them. Cornelius Johnson.
They only had 3 penalties for. Wait, who was that? That's first downs. I have no idea who this is. That's probably Alabama. Yeah, 3 yards for 15. Michigan had two penalties for 25.
2 for 25. So it was a very kind of heavyweight fight, and Michigan just got the knockdown, and Alabama didn't get the knockdown, and so it was a ununanimous unanimous decision there. Going forward, let's look ahead to the Natty just from the Michigan perspective.
I wrote notes this time. I actually did
then
research.
Go for it. All right, then go for it, my dude. Go for it.
I actually remembered what I had thoughts for so I could contribute, and you sit here just absolutely disrespecting me like that.
Well, I didn't expect you to have notes.
Yeah, I even made sure I watched the Sugar Bowl highlights because I went home and went to bed right away. Because unlike you guys, I had to work the next day. Michigan did what they needed to do when it mattered the most. They were struggling all the second half, and then they got the last drive, 75 yards. He took them, and they played Michigan football. They didn't try anything. The O-line decided to sack up and own a very, very solid Alabama defense for that entire drive, and they did it again in overtime, which got them what they needed to do. So congrats to Michigan for being themselves and doing what they needed to. Alabama did kind of shoot them in the foot, but not in the way that I think Nick Saban was expecting to. To me, this looked like the first team that was lacking development. And I don't know if that's transfer. I don't know if that's NIL. I don't know what that is. But Jaden Milroe is not the same type of 5-star, 4-star quarterback that you normally get. Yes, he's good. He did what he needed to. But Alabama's offense relied too heavily on him, in my opinion. And the rest of everybody just kind of looked rusty, is the best way I can put it, and underdeveloped as players. Compared to Michigan, where Blake Corum, they just had better athletes. Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy, there was more firepower, and that's what overdid Kool-Aid McKinstry. Sorry, I just wanted to say his name.
So it started out punt, and then it went touchdown. Alabama, then Michigan, and then it kind of turned into an Iowa, Michigan State snooze fest where it went punt, and then Michigan finally scored a touchdown, and then Bama got a field goal. Then it was the end of the half. Second half, punt, Bama touchdown, Michigan punt, Alabama fumble, missed field goal by Alabama, Michigan touchdown, Alabama punt, end of game, and then touchdown and turnover on downs, technically, to end the game. So, two, I would say, evenly matched teams. There is a narrative out there that this was for the national championship. I think that's a little disrespectful to Washington, just because Washington they got 3 NFL receivers. They got a first-round quarterback. They had a running back that was going to be productive with yardage, and they have a defense that'll turn you over in opportunistic ways. But this did feel like...
Stop clicking your pen. You're playing with something.
I'm not clicking my pen.
Is that Robert? Sorry. You were like the freaking whistle on Micaiah's surround sound system.
Robert, this finally felt like a Big Ten team stood up to an SEC team and punched them in the mouth. At no point did Michigan look beneath Alabama.
Yeah, but it took a month of preparation. And I think watching the game, it looked like Michigan had a month of preparation to, like, that the schemes that Michigan used were not something that it was a week-to-week thing. They sat there for a month, used film, signs. Connor Stallions was at the game. Like,
I did want to bring that up, yeah.
Like, you could tell they had time to sit, think, and do this game, which makes me worry about next Monday because there's no month.
It does. There is no month. It does have that feel. They were all super excited. They stormed the field.
You got over that hump. You got over the SEC. pumped up, and you know what? We can't win the goddamn Sugar Bowl. The past,
but
like,
you're right, but also JJ McCarthy, he's standing up there, right? Doing the post-game trophy ceremony, and he goes, "We still got one more." That's the mindset. That's your leader.
What else is he gonna say? Yeah, we're cool. We're done here.
Well, no, but he doesn't.
Michael Penix says the same damn thing. You put Jalen Milroe there. Jalen Milroe says, "We got one more. Roll Tide." You put Quinn Ewers. He says, "We ain't back yet." They kind of do. Like, because you're not going to have.
You do if you're trained well.
No leader of a football team is going to stand up there and say, "Yeah, we had a great season. We're just going to look forward to next week, and we're going to play our butts off." Like that's like the most generic thing to say.
At this point,
Christ, the T-shirts say the same damn thing.
Are you doubting the coaching staff, the players, to be able to flip it around in a week and get ready for Washington?
No, what I'm doubting is the mindset right now.
Okay, that's fair.
Because we've all seen this happen where you play that almost picture perfect game against an SEC team, specifically Bama, and you come into the next week, we are 4.5 point favorite. When have we ever been a 4.5 point favorite against a top 5 team?
We closed as a 2.5 point favorite against Alabama yesterday.
I know, and everyone was picking Alabama because of it. And now everyone's picking Michigan.
Not Dave Portnoy.
Because that's Dave. Dave's probably going to put $2 million on this game.
Yeah, probably.
I think we're just walking into this because we're going to get the media hype for it. We're getting the 4.5 points. Like right now, part of my language, we're walking with a big dick. All right.
Sure.
And it's just like. I've seen this so many times. We've seen this so many times when Michigan walks into these situations, and I don't want them to walk in there too confident.
But I don't think so. Corum's saying it was natty or bust before the Rose Bowl. Edwards is saying that the entire team knows the job's not finished, so it's just whether or not they execute. Robert, I do feel that way a little bit. There's a little bit of part of me that feels that way. But I would feel more that way if it was 42-20 and Michigan just routed Alabama. But they had mistakes on special teams. They had drops. JJ did not play well. The offensive line, I went over the punt thing. For the third quarter, could not move to the line of scrimmage for the life of them.
Sorry, I'm cutting you off. Finish your thought.
There's room to work on and room to grow. So I don't think that I'm as worried about that mindset as you are.
I'm not making fun of him. I was about to start talking. You can tell we're the same. So my dad, little story time. My dad was texting us during the game. And towards the end, Robert, I need to show you this. This was my heart rate yesterday. But towards the end, we got a notification that he was standing in front of the TV. My dad is a nervous pacer, and there was a photo of me and Micaiah both standing about 2 feet away from the TV at the end of the game yesterday, because that's how it was. For those of you watching, that's my heart rate at the end of the day.
There it is. Yeah, let's go.
I mean, she's a bit high.
She's a bit high. It went up to 132. Now, I was doing some push-ups and stuff in there, too. But it was up in the 110s by itself. That's how stressed I was over yesterday's. Moving on, though, looking from a more technical side, where we failed as Michigan in the Alabama game is where Texas, the opposite is where Texas succeeded. Texas won on the ground because they had no offensive line against Washington. This is just from the highlights. All the highlights I saw was Quinn Ewers getting flushed from the pocket and then finding a guy down the field. And then apparently they scored most of the time besides that one drop dime to Adonai Mitchell. And just for a second here. Holy crap, can Quinn Ewers throw the rock around? I would have stayed an extra year because if he develops the way that he's going to, that is going to be a prime number 1 overall pick for probably the Raiders next year. So when they eventually trade up and get rid of Jimmy Jesus. So the issue that Michigan is going to have next week on the field, I'm not worried about headspace. They always seem to be in the right headspace, at least this group of guys does. The issue that they're going to have on the field is Will Johnston and whoever's playing opposite him and whatever Jesse Minter schemes up against Michael Penix. I don't care about the box. I care about the secondary next week. Because if Michael Penix plays like he's Drew Brees had a child with Tom Brady and decides to throw the rock like he did, didn't he have the highest completing percentage?
He was so good. He was so good last night.
He was Jesus reincarnated as a football player with a do-rag. Like, the dude just was excellent. And Texas's D-line couldn't get to him because Washington's O-line was awesome. So my question here is, let's assume that O-line does the same thing and blocks our linebackers and defensive line. Jesse Minter did some really good stunts yesterday, but against a really inexperienced offensive line against Alabama. What happens if we get the same Michael Penix that he played against Texas? It's a totally different game, and we're screwed for a totally different reason. At least to me. Like, that's what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about does JJ and Blake show up. I'm concerned about does the defensive secondary show up in the semis?
Well, Texas's secondary is not as good as Michigan's secondary. Texas is big up front, nose tackle and linebacker especially. And Washington really could not run the ball last night. They only had 102 yards, 3.3 yards a carry on 31 tries. Meanwhile, Texas ran for 180 yards against Washington. Michael Penix, Simeon, to your point, 29 of 38, 430 through the air, and 2 touchdown. Rome Odunze had 125 receiving yards. Jalen Polk had 122 receiving yards. Jalen McMillan had 5 catches for 58 receiving yards and a touchdown. The secondary is going to be the matchup 110%. That's the matchup to watch next week. But how do you stop Michael Penix from Michael Penixing? Is you dominate their offensive line. And that's going to be hard because they are the Joe Moore Award winners. But Jesse Minter has come up with a plan to blitz the linebackers and blitz the corners and blitz Mike Sanders-Still. And Will Johnson came on a blitz. Short side of the field, he just came off, and it was a great tackle by the safety. So it's going to have to be team defense. Robert, our linebackers very good at blitzing. You're going to have to make Michael Penix uncomfortable in the natty and hope that your corners can kind of hold up on islands, or you're going to have to play a lot of zone and get shredded but give up field goals on the other end.
I just don't like either scenario, to be honest. I mean, as lucky as it was, but it's kind of unlucky in the same sense with the running back getting hurt. Like, they haven't said exactly how bad his injury is, but the coach kind of sounds a little worried about it. I mean, if history has shown the Joe Moore Award kind of doesn't mean jack, because Michigan's had it the past 2 years, and we've kind of gotten crushed in the offensive line aspect of it in the playoffs 2 times in a row. So hopefully history repeats itself, and we can just blitz the hell out of him, get him out of the pocket, get him uncomfortable, and at least get him to make enough of a mistake to where we can get a healthy lead, or at least stay in control.
And Simeon, also, what you missed because you didn't watch it live, which again, we were both off today, so we both got to watch it live. That's not, you did your due diligence by going to work and watching the highlight. Michael Penix threw for 430 yards. And if it weren't for 2 fumbles by the backup running backs, because Texas's starting running back injured himself in the game before the Big 12 title game, Washington gets 14 points off of those turnovers. If they don't have those turnovers, Texas was moving the ball. It's not like Texas didn't move the ball.
Texas I'm not saying Texas was a lesser team. That game was very even.
Right. So it's not like if Michigan turns the ball over against Washington, yeah, they're probably going to get their brakes blown off because they can't hold up to Michael Penix. Michael Penix is 1-0 against Michigan, threw for 350 yards last time when he was at Indiana.
But my point against Alabama was proven. Michigan's offense is designed to score you 30 points a game. They scored 27. What happens when an offense that they meet can score 20 points, 30 points a game like they did? My question is, what's the over-under going to be on this game?
If you have a great offense like Washington, very rarely is your defense elite. Washington's defense is good, but it's not elite. So Washington knows they're going to give up some points.
It's shown up when it's needed to, though. Minus Bo Nix absolutely slicing and dicing it. It's shown up when it's needed to.
And they get timely turnovers. That's what I said. They get timely turnovers. Blakey C. and a guy we did not see in the Rose Bowl hardly, Donovan Edwards, they're going to have to show up. They're going to have to dominate the line of scrimmage.
He had 1 drop and 1 catch, okay? He didn't. He actually didn't have.
Over-under is 55.5 for the Natty.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm taking that over.
I was close on that under for the Michigan-Alabama game. If that game wasn't overtime, like if Jim Harbaugh said, Robert, I have a big dick today, we're going for 2 when they score the touchdown, that's a totally different game. And I would have hit the under on that one, but unfortunately I didn't.
Speaking of overtime,
this transition's better than mine.
The Rose Bowl overtime. I want to talk about, and then I do want to talk a little bit more about Texas and Washington before we get into Natty preview. The quarterback draw, 4th and goal, it was basically a 2-point conversion, right?
3-yard line, 4-yard line.
Yeah, whatever it was. Everyone has an issue with it. People in Tuscaloosa are just eating up and spitting out Tommy Rees right now. The media has a big problem with it. Dan Orlovsky says he actually liked the call. Robert, I'm of the same mindset. I like the call because what was hurting Michigan that entire second half? The only thing hurting Michigan that entire second half defensively was the quarterback draw from Jalen Milroe and pulling the guards, pulling the tackle, and that's what they did. They had the guard pulled around. Now, Michigan countered that. They were blitzing Sanders still off the edge because it was supposed to go up. They're blaming it on the low snap. Did you like the quarterback draw? Didn't you like the quarterback draw? Both of you, I guess.
There's nothing wrong with the call. I mean, they interviewed Saban, and Saban said that's our one of the plays we run for the 2-point conversion. I mean, he ran the ball 21 times for 63 yards. Like, if Michigan doesn't come with that all-out blitz and the snap isn't in the dirt, he might get in. Like, he might get close. I mean, but
I disagree. To me, first of all, I saw that play coming.
Yeah. I did as well. Everyone.
I think that was their biggest issue. Is everybody goes, and I'm guessing Jesse Minter goes, probability pretty high that they're going to run a QB draw here. They're not going to snap it and give it to their running back. To me, I would have thrown the ball. That's just me, but that's only because I ran 2 QB draws the drive before. So it wasn't a surprise to me. It wasn't a low snap. To me, that was Michigan blowing up. I saw that play 15 times after. I saw it a couple more times this morning watching highlights. Michigan filled the gaps. That's what she said. Perfectly.
Nice.
They did everything they needed to. That was perfectly executed defensive football. That was Alabama's offensive line getting owned like your mother last night in both ways. Hey, so thank you. That's what that was to me. That was nothing else other than Alabama getting owned and Jesse Minter going, there's a 23% chance they're running a QB draw here. I'm going to guess they're going to go with that. And that's Tommy Rees, no offense to him, not knowing any better. And also Tommy Rees, to defend him a little bit more, and what Robert said, it worked for them all game last game. That's what I'm worried about Michael Penix. Michael Penix is just it's another version who can cut a little bit more than Jalen Milrose. And that's what I'm worried about in the Natty.
The only other... So apparently Alabama called 3 plays, Nick Saban said. They called one, Michigan called timeout. Then they called another one, then they called timeout, and then they settled on the quarterback draw. They're kind of stuck with the hash because of the play before, so that it was not a 2-point conversion, so they couldn't choose the hash. But I am doing some type of RPO on the edge if I'm doing anything else. But also, the quarterback draw scored you a touch, or just about scored you a touchdown. It ended up scoring you a touchdown from McClellan. It was gash. It was the only thing gash in Michigan in the second half consistently. 21 carries, 61 yards. Yes, Robert, but if you take away like the 40 sack yards, or if you add those back because college takes them away from the rushing stats for whatever reason, he's probably up near 100 yards. So I didn't have a problem with it. Everyone knew it was coming, but that's why you train in the winter, in the summer. It is for that moment.
It's not that hard of a play call from a defense perspective from a Monday morning quarterback here or Tuesday evening quarterback. You fill the gaps 3 yards out. You play man on the edge and you fill the gaps, and he's probably going to run a draw, but maybe he throws it and you just go one-on-one.
Michigan's in that same scenario. What play are they running?
They're doing an inside zone to Blake Corum, like they always do.
So it's one of those things where everyone knows what Michigan's going to run, and chances are, Michigan calls a timeout on that first one, and they're saying, okay, the play we were going to run was Blake Corum coming out of off to the left for a dump off. They come out the second time. There's another timeout. That second play was probably Roman Wilson somehow getting some sort of space into the corner of the end zone. So now we say, all right, tried and true, it's going up to Corum. We're not making that from 3 to 4 yards out.
Except
it's the same thing.
Except Michigan had made that play all day.
Right. So Michigan.
It's their version of the tush push. It's not. To me, the QB draw and the Blake Corum thing, like the Blake Corum touchdown. He ran the ball in overtime. It was a dump off in the flat.
It was a catch in the first half, yeah.
In the end, that is a totally different scenario to me, because normally it's an inside zone. Maybe something breaks open over the top, whatever the case is. Normally some sort of dueling crossing routes throw to Barnum or Loveland. In this case, it was let's pull a book out of Mike McDaniel's and move some people around and then dump it to somebody in the flat. It's not like Michigan didn't do that all season, but they did it something different. So I can't blame Tommy Rees for calling something that worked. What I can blame him for is not just sticking with the original play. It's not like they changed formations. I'm sure they technically did, but it's not like they changed formation. Why are we changing the play 3 times?
That's a good point. Where I'm blaming Tommy Rees is the first down play call that Mason Graham just blew up. Again, the thing working, the thing that got you the second half touchdown, the second half field goal, the only thing is quarterback draw. In overtime from the 25-yard line, I know I need a touchdown. First down, I'm running quarterback draw. Second down, now you're probably getting positive yardage or at least back to the line of scrimmage. Michigan was not ready, did not defend the quarterback draw. Or I'm taking a shot to the end zone because Michigan is man coverage, one-on-one. That's how they lived last night. But the fourth down, calling it when he did, that was their best play. I don't discredit him for that. I discredit him for running the first down play call that Michigan was blowing up their running backs all night. McClellan did have 87 yards, but late in that game, he was very ineffective. I feel like he had a couple kind of big 20-yard runs in there that added to the stats. Like Blake Corum averaged 4.4 yards a carry, and they were all 4.4 yards except his last one, which was a touchdown. By the way, Blake Corum has scored in every single game this year. He is the all-time leading rushing touchdown getter for the University of Michigan. He has 56 now on the year. He had 2 total touchdowns last night as he caught one. He had 2 catches for 35 yards. Okay, let's do this. Texas, Washington, Tejas and Washington. So we talked about
Texas back?
Is Texas back? Probably not.
I disagree.
How can you say they're not back when they make it to the playoffs?
Not only that, is that was a final play drive.
Yeah.
They make it to the last play of the game.
So if they win that game, are they back?
No.
So then Michigan has never been back.
Yeah, that is correct.
I disagree with you.
Get out of here.
I think
from the Texas fans, Texas is not back until they win a natty.
Right. And then they lose the next year. I don't understand this whole Texas is back thing. Texas and Michigan have the same exact timeline, just they have a cooler quarterback in Texas.
I don't. Texas is back. Yeah, probably. Is Texas elite again? Yes. I will 100% concede that. Texas is elite again.
What I think Texas is back means.
I understand.
That's what I would go with.
Okay, well, Texas is back means so many things to different people. So,
that's because it's a meme at this point.
Texas is back.
We're back.
Do we even still have that one?
I think I deleted that one off the media. It would be at the bottom if it is.
Texas moving to the SEC.
Yeah, no, it's not there.
Are they still competing? Next year, they don't make college football playoff. 12 teams. They aren't one of the 6 at large. I'm just going to assume right off the bat, they're not. The new team at Oklahoma and Texas aren't winning the FCC championship game. So let's just assume they're in they got to get an at-large bid. They don't make it next year. How disappointing is it to that fan base?
Extremely.
Considering it's 12 teams, yeah, it would be.
Is it okay? So, from our perspective, not the Texas fan base that lives and bleeds burnt orange. Is it a disappointment if Texas doesn't make the college football playoff?
We play them next year.
We do. Week 2. By the way, national championship game. We're gonna have a redo in week 6 next year when Michigan goes out to Seattle and plays in Husky Stadium.
And everybody's excited for it. For the record, we'll know if Texas is back before your question is slightly invalid, Micaiah, because we're gonna know before the end of the year whether or not Texas is back because they play Georgia at home October 19th. Next year. To me, Texas is back because they have 2 teams they have to compete with next year. Alabama, they beat them already. Okay, congratulations. Georgia, awesome. That's who they have to compete with next year. There's only 2 teams. Maybe they lose the Red River rivalry, but that's a rivalry game.
But So is that, yes, it's from your point of view, it's a disappointment if Texas doesn't make the college football playoff next year?
Well, the question is, do they beat Michigan and Georgia next year? That's That's the question.
How was that the question? My question literally was.
Yep. I have to ask yours. Let me answer your question with the question. Does Texas beat Michigan or Georgia next year?
They split them. They beat
split
one, lose to the other.
Awesome. They're making the playoff. There's no way a one-loss Texas team, assuming they only have one loss, doesn't make the playoffs next year.
I don't think Texas is
so
finishing
to answer
with
your
one
question
loss next year.
Florida. Yeah, they're going to beat Florida.
Are they?
UTSA. They're going to beat UTSA. Kentucky. Probably Kentucky. Texas A&M. Rivalry game. Post Jimbo Fisher. Yeah, probably going to beat Texas A&M next year. With Quinn Ewers back, the number of athletes that Texas is going to have, what recruiting and transfer Texas just did in their game last night.
With the realignment,
and you can be a two-loss team and get in next year.
Hot take right now.
To answer your question, I think they're getting in, but it is a disappointment if they don't because they should get in.
Of the 12 teams next year for the college football playoff, hot take. Here we go. Ready for this? Of the 12 teams next year for the college football playoff, more than half will have at least 2 losses.
Yeah, you have to.
Well, yeah, probably. That's like a very common.
But Simeon's like, Texas is only losing 1 game. No, they're not. Texas is looking at minimum 2 losses.
If Texas is able to play as Texas is able to play, let's say they're at 97, they're functioning at 97% right now. They go down 15% and they're functioning at 82% at the beginning of next year. They're functioning at 85% when they hit Michigan week 2. If they beat Michigan, there's no way. If they lose to Michigan, they're functioning at 100%. When everybody else is only functioning at 92% when they hit Georgia.
92%.
There's no way.
Shout out.
There's no way you don't get in.
I wouldn't be surprised if at least 75% of the teams that make the playoffs next year have 2 losses.
Yeah. I'm not going to be.
I feel like that's just like a very normal thing, just because
it's going to have to be. It's going to be BCS all over again.
Probably two, if not 3 year conference champions are probably going to be undefeated. Maybe
they might not be, Robert.
Your schmuck Liberty gets in. What a waste of space that is half the time.
Dear Lord. Okay. I was so disappointed in the Liberty-Oregon game. It was awesome for the first 3 minutes.
I know exactly how that game was going to turn out.
Look, if anyone thought that game was going to be
Nick said, "Here's what a real dick looks like in the locker room."
Oh, wow!
And just tore everything up.
We need to stop sitting here and going, you know what? Liberty, Coastal Carolina, James Madison, Tulane, come on. These teams are never going to win a national championship. Never. They shouldn't get an automatic bid into the playoff. Because
they should.
Because this is what happens. They go and they play teams like Oregon, and it's like, Bo Nix just threw for 15 touchdowns and about 250,000 yards.
Right, but SMU should have been in there, and I think if SMU's in there, it's a little different. That score's a little different. I'm not saying they win, but
Oregon scores 4 more touchdowns if it's SMU.
And we don't know what it's like when there's actually finally something on the line. Oregon could have blown them out by 15, or Liberty shows up and only blows them out by 12.
Yeah,
and then there's an argument for keeping them in.
Well, Robert, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with you because every team needs a stepping stone. I mean, Ohio State
they are the stepping stone.
Ohio State got blown out. Michigan got blown out in their first college football playoff appearance. You have to get there in order to build your program further. Right? Like James Madison isn't just going to win the Sun Belt and then walk in and win 2 playoff games and make it all the way to the semifinal their first try. Right? But if they get a home game and they win one, and then they get blown out in the quarterfinals, that will be at the Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, or whatever.
Gonzaga isn't a power. Right. No. Gonzaga isn't a powerhouse because they're on their 4th coach in 4 years. They're a powerhouse.
Gonzaga has
the coach
the same
has been
coach.
around forever, and they've slowly, incrementally have grown. I agree with you, but this was their 6th year in the FBS. I think is what they said, 6th season in the FBS. They shouldn't have never left, in my opinion, the FCS, but whatever the case. It was their first season in Conference USA, They played New Mexico State in their first season in Conference USA. They played a really good game. They deserved to be there, and then they just shit the bed. That's all that happened.
That's not shitting the bed. That's not even getting in the bed.
They got dominated.
Shit in the bed.
They got dominated. 100%.
They had different level of athletes. That's what happened.
You're putting those teams they are not going to make it out of the first round of those playoffs most of the time.
That's fine, Robert. That's okay.
Fine, but you still have to have that representation because you have to be able to give these lower level teams a stepping stone. Yeah, because if they don't have a stepping stone from the dock to the boat, they're all drowning, and it's just going to be Texas and Michigan and Alabama and Georgia, and that's going to get boring after a while.
The Super League, there's a reason the Super League in soccer didn't work. I'm sorry to keep drawing parallels to everybody who hates soccer, Micaiah, but it's always going to happen because that's exactly what we're seeing. It's if you do not have a stepping stone, if there is no relegation and promotion, you never get these teams that grow into something, and you never get juggernauts that absolutely crash to the ground.
You can't just get thrown into the deep end your first time. If
Robert's point is they don't even deserve to be here. Not that they...
Yes, Robert is saying that these lower level schools don't deserve to be at the pool. I'm saying in order for them to earn to be at the pool, you got to put them in the shallow end first. You got to let them experience the
shallow end happens
blowout.
during the season.
No, that's not...
If Liberty goes out there and just, put him during the season. Okay, they're playing Sam Houston State. They're other than their conference games, then their non-conference schedule has to be. That's their stepping stones.
Yes, it has to be.
It
better,
can be, but also, Robert, if you're making that argument, Michigan shouldn't have been ranked first.
Oh, 100%. We've said this before that they shouldn't have been ranked 1. We were all expecting Washington to be 1 because Washington's schedule and resume was leaps and bounds ahead of Michigan's.
Yeah, Washington lost the eye test. Okay, here I'm moving
Michigan
on.
Lost the eye test.
No, Washington lost the eye test because Michigan dominated everyone. Washington did not. Okay, speaking
Michigan's
of Washington,
sexier brand.
Michigan, national championship game in Houston. So it's literally a neutral site for both these teams.
Why
Washington?
Houston? Why do we keep coming back to Houston?
Because
what is it with NRG Stadium?
It goes to the highest bidder.
It's warm.
It's indoors. They could hold it
indoors.
Detroit.
You could do US Bank Stadium.
Yeah, you could do probability of there being it's January. I doubt there's going to be snow in Texas. There's probably going to be snow in Minneapolis.
Listen, if I have a national championship game, even if I'm not a fan of either team, if I have a ticket, I'm fucking going to the game. Sorry, Mom.
Well, yeah,
I'm going to the game.
The probability of there
walk
being
10
a
miles to get to that game
compared to B is a lot higher.
I'm getting to that game. Which, by the way, you put on. How much are seats right now? I see you put notes.
The lowest is $900. The most expensive is $7,500. That's available.
All right, and that's at NRG Stadium, Houston Texans Stadium. They will be battling for a playoff game 2 days before.
You get heroin shot and a cheap ticket.
All right, great. So, gentlemen, here we gotta do everything in this episode. There aren't 2 episodes. This one's getting released.
Covered this.
So we didn't do picks, did we, sir? We didn't do picks.
It's one pick. It's not like we're picking a full slate.
Yeah.
Do not make me drive down there. All right.
Up here. Not down there.
Yeah.
Up here.
Yeah.
Bud.
Come on.
I drive down there. You drive up here.
You want to be kicked in the face.
Well, it's going to take you about an hour and a half to get up there. So
It's going to take me.
We'll be ready for it.
Yeah. I'll be waiting. Come on, Jalen Milroe. I know what you're running.
Listen.
Your black manual Camry, 2008.
Okay, it's 2011. You need to be nice to Clyde. Here we go.
Clyde.
Michigan is mine. The spread is 4.5. The over/under is 55. Washington is a plus 170 underdog currently. Keys to the game. My keys. Let's all go down the line. Quick keys to the game. Quick, and then we'll start all over and we'll do a pick. My key to the game, I think it's going to be everyone, is the Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards against Washington's defensive line. Can Michigan control the line of scrimmage running the football? And then defensively, it is specifically the corner, whoever that is, opposite of Will Johnson, and the safety on that side against the receivers of Washington. Robert, your keys to the game.
Slowing down Washington and not settling for field goals. We just got to put the ball in the end zone, get the 7 points, and limit the mishaps. Can't shoot ourselves in the foot this year. Slow down Washington, outscore them.
Simeon?
Michigan's ability to drive the ball and control clock, I think, is going to be what this case. You put Michael Penix in places that he hasn't necessarily been before. They have explosive plays, but if you block the ability for Washington to have choices, you block the ability for Washington to win the game. I think the defensive line, we're going to need to see a repeat of what we saw against Alabama and Jalen Milrose. We need to see interesting blitz schemes. We need to probably do some more press man for that. As far as Washington goes, is can Michael Penix throw the ball like he did against Texas? Can his O-line protect him like he can against Texas? And what does Washington's defense look like? I didn't see too much against Washington's defense. Can they get after J.J. McCarthy? It works both ways, Basically, can football be played is what I'm pointing at, but I'm making it sound
great.
fancy.
So literally every single position on the field is Simeon's keys to the game in the national championship. And he's not wrong. I will give everyone a little tip here. There will be an X factor in this game that no one will mention in any podcast or any television preview. Last night, there was no mention of Michigan's punt returners. Zero mention of that. And guess what? They almost affected the game. There was no mention about Alabama struggling with snaps. And guess what? It affected the game. Something that no one thinks of will affect the national championship in either a negative or a positive. So just be on the lookout for that. All right, pick time.
Your mom could affect the game.
All right.
Ooh.
Thanks. Michigan, Washington, we're in the 90s. We are 30 years ago. A team that dominated the early 90s in Washington and against the team that dominated the late 90s in Michigan. This Michigan team is focused. J.J. McCarthy is different. I like how balanced we are. I think Sharon Moore is creative. But more importantly, I think Jesse Minter's even more creative. I think Jesse Minter's probably going to the NFL along with Jim Harbaugh when they both leave together, because that Baltimore defensive system is just ripping up the NFL, and it's going to rip up the national title game. I like the over to hit, either by Washington giving up a boatload to Michigan or Michigan giving up a boatload to Washington, or both. So I like the over 55.5 to hit. But for the winner, I will be on the edge of my seat. I will be 2 feet away from the TV. Give me the maize. Give me the blue. Michigan, national champions, over Washington, going 15-0. The over 55.5 winning.
That was nice.
Thanks. Someone else want to go? Or you just want me to end things now?
I was going to let Robert go.
All right. 1997. Michigan, national champions, against Washington State.
Let's go.
Can you believe that?
In the Rosie.
2024. Just won the Rose Bowl. Got the Rose Bowl patch on the shoulder pads and everything. Sight to see. I don't like the 4.5. I don't like being the favorite. We all know this.
Yeah, we all know this.
Yeah. Last, I went against my gut and I picked Michigan to win because the superstitions, they just kill me. They just kill me. All right. 2024. Washington. versus Michigan. It ain't the state, but God damn it, it's Washington. And Michigan's going to roll into Houston because you know what? Washington's got a problem.
What's
and
that?
it's the maze. It's the maze, and it's the blah, and it's Harbaugh, Minter, Sharon Moore, and the boys in blue. Michigan by a field goal, and I'm going to be looking forward to seeing Dave Portnoy saying, bet!
Let's go. All right, Admiral, finish us out.
I don't think most people will be surprised with my pick here. I think Harbaugh is going to be the difference here. I agree with Micaiah. I think special teams is going to be the difference here because that's what I see. I see that being really the only difference between these two teams is who kicks the ball better. And Micaiah said it last week. At the beginning of the season. When he missed that first field goal, we said, oh, that's no Jake Moody. We're going to have a problem with our kicker. And guess what we had? We had a problem with our kicker last night. 2 problems with our kicker last night. White guys can't catch the football. It happens to the best of us. But I think the coaches are going to have them. I think they've been here before. You can't take a dude from Indiana and expect him to win the Super Bowl unless he's Larry Bird. I think it's Michigan, but I agree with Robert. I think it's Michigan minus the points. I think it's over 55.5 as well. You're not going to get too much excited. I don't know what to expect.
All right,
this has been the 4th&1 podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the 4th&1 podcast. Don't forget
my heart rate's going to be elevated next week too.
You filthy animals, go blue. We'll be back to next week to review the Natty. Until next time, bye. Stay safe.